let's jump in. I figured everybody can just introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll bounce around and just talk some golf.
I'm Ryan Cole.
Connor Burgess.
Cameron Moore.
Mark Lawrence.
Love to see it. So I figured let's talk, if you guys wouldn't mind, let's talk about just roughly the last year, especially the 24 season for each of you. I think a lot of our listeners and, AP community and beyond, they know what you guys do, but they don't exactly know what a schedule looks like, the difference in just getting out of college and trying to make it versus being out here for a little bit. So, just kind of give us a rundown of where you were playing, what types of tournaments, and just kind of how your 24 season was overall.
So this is Ryan again. This is my 8th year playing professional golf, so I've been at it a while. It's always a grind. It's never as glamorous as people might want it to be. But we're all always working hard, trying to get starts in meaningful events. And so for me, like last year, I had no status anywhere, which is it's unfortunate. You play poorly at Q school, and that's kind of what happens. So I was just Monday qualifying in a lot of places and trying to get into some bigger events, and was able to do so. This year and see what we can do and try to make some noise.
Back to Connor. Last year I was able to play on the Korn Ferry Tour after getting through Q school late in 2023, so that was pretty exciting for me to experience all of that last year. Ended up playing in I think 14 events out there on the Korn Ferry Tour last year. Was very eye-opening and learned a lot. It was definitely a struggle for me, getting my feet wet out there a little bit. And, guys are good at every level, and it's important to, stick to the process and be able to enjoy it and not get too caught up in, the small things and kind of, keep a good perspective on what you're doing, try to have fun, and, kind of have the same goals for this coming year. Lost my card, and, we're doing everything we can to get it back, but just got to stick to the process and continue to work out, keep the body healthy, and, do everything we can do.
All right, it's Cameron here. So I'm in year 2, 3 of pro golf. Graduated college in 2023, and it's been a little bit of a learning curve, but it's nice to have a good team around me and a good group of guys like we have today, and just trying to get better every day, and excited to get back out of it. Got our first tournament of the year in a couple weeks, so just excited to play competitive golf again and start chasing Mondays and get some status somewhere. That's the real goal. Just playing good tournaments and have good competition.
This is Mark. My 24 season really wasn't a season. I was actually working at Pella Windows until September of last year. So I had ligament reconstruction in my wrist and wasn't able to really play. I got back and got to play a couple tournaments in the fall and play Q school. Didn't make it through Q school, but got through first stage, which in all reality at the time, that was a huge accomplishment for me, just building confidence and everything, given that I hadn't played in over a year. Going into the 25 season, I'm hoping to get status on some tour, hopefully PGA Tour Americas, and then use that to propel myself to the Korn Ferry Tour. And, all year chasing Mondays, trying to play in as many events as I can, just getting the reps. Reps are so important at this level, especially when you've dealt with injuries basically since you've turned professional. It's just trying to get as many reps continuously as you can to just get yourself ready and, build that golf endurance, the mentality you need to play at like the highest level consistently.
Cool, it's good stuff. I think it's good to hear, just the variety of ways that people can get some status. And I think just the difference between like trying to Monday versus, having to wait obviously until Q school in the fall and what that looks like with travel and stuff. I think one thing, whether it's juniors, we work with a lot of AM players. I'd like to hear from you guys. When we talk golf swing, specifically, and this doesn't need to be crazy technical. It might be technical. I think as we go into 2025 for each of you, what are maybe one or two things that you're focusing on in terms of obviously playing better golf, but I think from scoring at this level as well. And hopefully there'll be some tips, I think, from a variety of different players that can be applicable to players of different levels. Whether it's minimizing a miss, looking for a new scoring opportunity, stats, and anything golf specific. What's been maybe the big focus for each of you 2025 in terms of how you're approaching the game to score and kind of get that status that you're all chasing?
So for me, I would say that I probably approach things a little differently than a lot of guys do, and maybe a lot differently than you hear on social media or wherever it is, because there's always this push for distance, and everybody wants more distance, and it's obvious why you would. For me, that's not really my game. I've chased it in the past, and it really hasn't worked out very well for me when I do. So for me, I'm trying to lean into what my strengths are and try to really get better at those, which is maybe a little sounds a little strange, instead of going after what would be perceived as possibly a weakness. So for me, I'm really working on, it's just distance control. I'm trying to hit my wedge distances, trying to be, have a little more variety inside 100 yards, just be a little more versatile. And for me, I just feel like that's where I can really separate myself. Obviously, getting in the gym and working out and getting stronger naturally, and that way, producing more speed because of that is a good thing, and that's always welcomed. But for me, I'm not really necessarily chasing that as much, and I'm really just trying to just up the precision of my game and get more dialed in with numbers and feels. And for me, I feel like that's where the scoring happens. And then obviously, the great equalizer in golf to me still is putting. And I regardless of what the large data size, says, like in terms of, all these golf statisticians, right? They all say that putting maybe is not really a great indicator of, great scoring. But for me, I know that when I'm making putts, the whole game gets a lot easier, just from a psychological perspective, from just really from every angle. And if I can feel confident putting, I feel like the rest of my game really follows suit. So for me, I'm focused a lot on the wedge game, and then, just feeling a little more athletic putting, feeling just like I'm gonna go out there and I'm shooters shoot, as they say, right? And I kind of just go with that mentality putting, and like we're gonna go and make a lot of putts and shoot low rounds, and that's what really takes you where you want to go, especially at pro golf. It's a little different, maybe AM golf, college golf, consistency's rewarded more often, I would say, whereas pro golf, the reward comes from shooting really good numbers and having really good weeks. And if you have bad weeks, it's not the end of the world. It really doesn't mean a whole lot, because the difference in maybe missing a cut versus finishing 50th, it's really not a lot. Obviously every shot counts and every dollar counts, and all of that, but where you really make your money and you really make a season is off of the high level play. So for me, in terms of how do we do that, you're going to have to make a lot of putts. You have to make a lot of birdies. You got to hit it close. And so that's really what I'm looking to attack. And I think that's the formula for me.
Yeah, Ryan hit just about all the points there. For me, as most of y'all probably know, I fall into the trap of getting a little too technical sometimes. But, that's just the way that I've always played golf, and, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's important for me to feel like I can stick to fundamentals and, whether that's being set up or alignment, just the simple things that give you the confidence, going out on the course. I mean, those are things that you can control, and those are things that are important to, keep very consistent on a day-to-day basis. So I'm trying to revert back to that. In a way, I've always been a pretty good driver of the golf ball. I hit it relatively far and straight, which has been a strength of mine for quite a while now. Not so much in college, but as I got stronger throughout the years, I feel like I've been able to at least manage the driver pretty well. So I know for me, I would say the two most important aspects for me are driving and putting. Iron game varies from player to player. I've always been a pretty good ball striker, but I feel like if I'm able to get the ball in play on par fives, hit a lot of par three greens, and the par fours birdies will come on those holes as well. But if you're in play and you're hitting lots of greens, like Ryan said, I think if you're putting, in a consistent way to where your speed control is solid, I think it frees up a lot of other areas of the game as well. For me, I think it's important to, go back to the fundamentals and just control the things that I can control.
Yeah, I think Connor and Ryan have both touched on a lot of really good things. Pro golf is – everyone is good out there. Everyone does things their own way. It's hard to – trust what you're doing if you have a couple bad weeks in a row. But you have to trust what you're doing, and you have to stick with like the fundamentals, and you have to work on kind of the boring things sometimes, like putting and short game and wedges, because everybody's going to strike the ball, half decent and have a lot of good opportunities. And, it comes down to, how many, putts you can make and how many of those par saves you can have, and just staying consistent overall, I think, is what we strive for in pro golf and amateur level golf. When I'm not playing, I caddy at Kinlock here in Richmond, and I see a lot of, mid-level handicappers who, honestly, they have a lot of really good golf swings and strike the ball pretty decent, but, when it comes down to it, their putting and their short game isn't where it could be. And I think a lot of guys just go out there and beat balls in the range all day and work on the things that you don't really necessarily have to score well. And that's the ultimate goal with our profession and everyone that's trying to get better, is to score better. And that's what I'm really trying to work on this year, is, just get the putter more dialed in. That's kind of been my weakness in the past couple years. And it's not anything super technical. I think just, trusting it and trust that I'm putting in the right work to do it. And, everything else. I mean, driver distance is obviously very important in today's game, and everybody's getting longer and longer. But at the same time, you still have to learn how to score, and that's ultimately what golf comes down to.
Yeah, all three of the guys kind of hit on basically everything I would have said myself. But one of the things that I really, want to get better at this year is, and I don't know if this is maybe just from lack of tournament play over the last few years, but just getting to where I know when I was in college, it didn't really matter if I was playing poorly or if I was playing well. Every time I stood up on the first tee in a tournament, my mindset was, I'm going to win the golf tournament. And I don't necessarily have that every time I step up on the tee at this point, and I think that's just from somewhat of a lack of confidence, somewhat of not knowing my game to the extent that I think I should. And that's one of the things that I think as I continue to play more and I get more reps, I will get better at, and I will have more self-belief. And a lot of that, this fall when I started playing again, my putter was not where it should have been. And I put in some work throughout January on that, and I've gotten to where I feel a lot more confident with that. And that's generally been one of the weaker parts of my game. But it feels really good right now, so I'd like to just continue to work on that and make that better. And then I'd talk to Kyle, like one of the things I really want to work on this spring is trying to just get stronger to make it to where I can swing and have the same power and speed, but I don't have to put as much effort into it. I saw a video of Jake Knapp talking about how he feels like he swings 80%, but he still has, just as much speed. And yeah, obviously he can go at it harder and have more speed, but ideally you'd like to be able to get it to where you're swinging smooth and in control and you're still getting that same pop. So going forward, that's one of my big goals and objectives over the next few months is trying to just increase strength to allow myself to swing easier with the same amount of speed.
Yeah, it's good. I'll go a little technical since you guys all alluded to, obviously scoring. I think professionally, like Ryan said, you need to go out there and probably mix in like a day of shooting 65 if you're going to win. Even G Pro, type of events and short games, super, super important. There's a pretty decent, discussion out there nowadays in terms of short game, especially around the green, pitching it and in the maybe proper way, which of course there probably is no real proper way. I'm curious for you guys, the difference between how you might approach, we're sitting here at Independence, you're playing number 10 and you're off the front and it's a middle pin, you've got some green. How would you guys approach playing that shot relative to a stock shot maybe for each of you? Let's say you're like 20 paces off the front for some reason, which hopefully wouldn't happen to any of you, but to a middle pin, like are you trying to hit a shot that's getting close to the hole checking? Are you trying to take advantage of the green? And then I think on the flip of that, let's say you're a mid-single digit handicapper, reasonably good player. How do you think amateurs should play that shot? Like, do you like playing something that's a 50 to 54 degree that's going to run out a bit? Do you think people should play a 60 degree and just play a variety of shots from there? Each of you play with a bunch of amateurs, so maybe how do each of you approach that shot? Let's say it's a tournament and you're trying to guarantee you're getting that ball up and down. And then what's the average, amateur player need to do to just play better golf from there, from a percentage standpoint? We'll go back to Mark.
Yeah, so if I'm sitting 20 yards off the front of the green on 10, there's so many variables. I mean, if you're downwind, you're into the wind, you got a good lie, you're on an upslope, you're on a downslope. There's a lot of things that factor, but if we're just talking like a neutral shot, no wind, you got 30 feet of green to work with. For me personally, I'm generally going to use my 60 degree. There's rarely a time that I don't. I'm a little bit different than most guys. Like I probably should learn more shots with other wedges, and I've incorporated more wedge shots around the greens with other wedges, but I prefer to use my 60 just because I've spent so much time learning all these shots that I have with it. But for me, that would be somewhat of a neutral stance. I'd open the face. I'm a big believer that the face should be open on every single chip shot. When you open the face, you expose the bounce, and when there's more bounce to be used, the easier it is to hit the chip shot. It's just like if you ever hear Tiger Woods talk about it, he always likes to raise his hands. He wants the toe down. The toe bounces, the heel digs. You want to try to take the heel out of play. But it would be a neutral stance, a little bit of an open face, hands a tiny bit ahead, and I would hit a mid-height shot. Ideally, it would take one, 8 to 10 foot skip, check up at the next bounce, and then roll forward maybe 3 feet. Giving that 3 feet would be the range where I was trying to get it to roll and fall in the hole. I know like my dad is huge on playing the bump and run, and his whole idea was to get the ball on the green and have it roll as a putt as quickly as you can. And I think that's great for amateur golf, mid-level golf. I think that's a really good way to approach it. And if you wanted to pull like a 52 degree there and land it 5 feet on the green and just have it hop and roll all the way to the hole, that's one way to play it. Me personally, I like to have a little bit more control of the ball. I'm very confident with that kind of shot. So I would generally fly it a little bit further with some spin and have it just trickle out towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, for an amateur golfer, it's definitely easier with less loft, just, keeping the ball on the ground, having it on the ground as long as possible. I try and practice with different clubs, but, similar to Mark and probably most of us, I mean, most of the time we're around, like, chipping around the chipping green. It's usually on our 60 or our 58 or something like that. And for me, like, I try to practice and, kind of just throwing balls in random spots and not trying to give myself like perfect lies every time, because when you're on the golf course, you're never going to have an ideal lie. And I think that's important too for amateurs to just learn how to analyze lies. Like, sure, like if you're in the fairway, it's pretty easy to see it. It's going to come out the same way most of the time. But if you're sitting in rough too, like Independence it's tough to judge with Bermuda, especially this time of year when it's dormant. But I like to, figure out like low point and all that stuff. It's very important for me, like finding where I'm making contact with the ground, because if you are on hole 10 at Independence, uphill lie kind of into the green, you're probably going to want to hit ball first. It's going to come out just way more predictable, back in your stance, trying to drive it in a little lower. But if you're sitting, up on a plush, 2-inch Bermuda rough, you don't want to come super steep down in that, and you're going to have to approach it a little differently, maybe put the ball up more in your stance. But like every time I'm looking at a chip shot, those are kind of the things I'm analyzing, kind of how I want to approach it, where I'm kind of attacking the ball or coming into. And, when you're practicing at home, you can learn that just from random lies and not just sitting it up on a perfect piece of grass every time. So that's the way I approach chipping and practicing chipping.
All right, I'll keep it pretty short and simple here, because Cameron and Mark both hit on good points again. For that shot, I've mostly chipped with a 58. Try to learn how to hit shots with other wedges as well. But again, like as an amateur golfer, if you're not practicing that a ton, there's a lot of variables in how far, a 50-degree might go if you're trying to hit a bump and run. Like those shots are more feel rather than chipping with the 58 is more of it kind of comes naturally if that's what you've done most of the time. But I think for me, assessing lies is very important. It's also important to make sure you're getting solid contact. So whatever club you feel like you can make the best contact with, I think that's going to be your best shot at getting the ball close to the hole. And it could even be a putter, so also depends on the fairways you're playing. If it's, into the green, down green, whatever off the green, sometimes a putter might work for some instances, sometimes it might not. But yeah, I mean, solid contact is very important. And, I think for a lot of amateurs, if you're around the green, I think whatever gives yourself the best chance, even if you're just getting it onto the green and two putting from there, that's going to eliminate double bogeys and it's going to lower your handicap.
Yeah, I think Connor's spot on with talking about, we need to get, as an amateur, you need to get the ball on the green. And this is talking mostly, maybe like a, 7 to 12 handicap amateur. I mean, obviously, if you're a better player, you've been playing a long time, you got more experience and everything. Yeah, I mean, you can be a little more varied with the shots that you're gonna try to hit around the greens like that. But I think most mid-handicap amateurs don't putt often enough from off the green. I think if you're really honest about it, if you're in the fairway and you're short of a green, very often I think your best chance of getting that ball on the green becomes with a putter. And I mean, obviously, you want to hit the cool nipper in there where you takes one hop and stops next to the hole. Like, obviously, like, yeah, it's fun. Everybody loves to do it, but in reality, if you're talking about trying to shoot the best score possible, I think very often keeping the ball closer to the ground, whether it's a bump and run or whether it's a putt, is probably going to be your best course to take. And I think, sometimes your buddies might make fun of you, like, oh, you're going to putt that from, 15 yards off the green. I mean, reality is that that's probably a great percentage play, and I respect it. I think that's a that's a great play. I think that's thinking your way around the golf course, and it's just playing the percentages. And so I think it'd be great if more amateur players went with that and went ahead and did that instead of trying to hit the perfect shot. Me personally, I'm a little different than a lot of other guys. I mean, I really don't touch the 60 degree very often. I look at it as it's a specialty club to me. It's whether I need to if I need to hit a flop shot, if I have a bunker shot where I don't have a lot of green to work with, it's a club that I'm using sparingly because for me, the way I have it set up, I have very little bounce on that club, so it digs pretty significantly if I hit down and aggressively into the ball. So for me, I'm generally using that club when I'm using a wide open face and trying to hit something high. And that's if I'm having to do that, I'm in a bad spot. I've hit a bad shot to get there, so I'm trying to do something mildly heroic to get out of it. But I'll use a lot of different clubs around the greens. I'll use the 56 all the time. I'll use the 50 degree more now than ever. Really, I'm hitting a lot of shots where I bump it into the hill, and I like to keep it closer to the ground. I just think that it's a lot easier to get good contact with the flatter the face, the easier it is to make clean, solid contact. And that's, I think, especially relevant around here in the wintertime off of dormant Bermuda. A lot of times it's a little muddy. It's all just, for me, it's playing high percentage golf, and in turn doing that reduces the stress level that I have on the golf course. Because for me, I maybe I can't hit the perfect shot doing that, and maybe it wouldn't be, if I'm trying to hit this to a foot, sure, maybe this is not the best chance of me doing that, but in terms of okay, can I get this inside of 5 feet? It's probably a better chance than trying to hit something that's a little more heroic. And so I just like to minimize as much stress as possible, and whether that's off the tee or around the greens, just in general, I just try to approach it that way, and I think that for me leads to better scores.
Yeah, good stuff. I think I play with too many people at my level that are worried about getting inside of 3 feet versus trying to hopefully have a makeable 10-foot or something like that that's a little more realistic. One question that we've had from a bunch of our junior players that are going to play college golf soon, or maybe in their freshman year at college, can you guys just kind of talk a little bit about the transition to college golf for each of you relative to junior golf? And I'd be curious too, not only what's that transition like, but what do you think separates pretty good junior golfers from really good junior golfers? I've got my opinions in terms of a lot of junior, I'll be honest, I think a lot of junior golfers are just soft. And I'm sorry if that's offensive, but I think unfortunately with golf, a lot of us that, maybe get to play club golf comes with a level of, privilege at the end of the day. And, I'm always trying to figure out how I can encourage our junior players to just be more competitive. It's one thing to go out there and shoot, 68 with your boys at your club, but how do you do it tournament after tournament? And, yeah, just what separates, especially maybe a player that can get an opportunity to play Division I golf compared to great opportunities at other levels, what separates them? So, how was your transition to college golf? And, how can we make better junior players?
So, really, I mean, I think it just comes down to the level of work required is more than most kids think going into college. I mean, it was for me. I thought I was a hard worker going into college, and I had some decent success early on, but it wasn't to the extent that I wanted it to be. And about halfway through, I realized, putting in the 20 hours a week or whatever is allowed, mandated by NCAA, that's just it's not going to be enough in order to get you to really excel and be where you want to be with your college golf career. So you're gonna have to put in a lot of time. You're gonna have to put in a lot of extra effort, and because you have to, at the end of the day, it is competition. You're gonna have to be better, not only better than players on other teams, but players on your team, because you have to get in the lineup. You have to beat those guys in order to travel to go to the events, and you're gonna have to stand out, and you're gonna have to be a better player than them. And so it is competition. It's every man for himself, every woman for themselves. I mean, that's how it is. The competition's better than ever. Kids are more advanced now coming out of high school. I think far more advanced than they were even when I was coming out. I mean, that's been 10 years now, a little over, and you're just gonna have to up the intensity. And if you really want to do it, everybody's good, and you're gonna have to do something to separate yourself.
Yeah, so the transition was definitely eye-opening for sure. I think junior golf and college golf are vastly different in a variety of different ways. I won't quite get into all that, but I had a couple of successful years as a junior, and had an okay college career. Not to what I wanted, but again, going back to the hard work and whatnot, I think looking back on it now, and whether people disagree with it or not, I think the cockier that you can be, and the more confidence that you have in yourself, self-belief, that's really all it is. Because it kind of all starts there. You can put in the work, you can, do everything you think you need to be doing. But I mean, if you don't have any belief in yourself, then it's going to be tough to ever get to the level that you want to get to. And I think, guys now are starting to realize that the mental game is important, and I think that's something that juniors, whether you're 15 or 18, like, start honing in on that as early as you can. I think it'll help separate yourself from other kids as well. And then, college golf, like Ryan said, it's important to try to be the best on your team, because then, that'll also make you a good leader, and I think it'll transition far in life as well.
Yeah, I mean, with every sport, every level that you go up, I mean, it's going to be the best players in high school are going to be playing college, and the best players from college will, hopefully make it to the pros. And you have to understand that, every level that you go up, you have to keep getting better and keep pushing yourself. And, the NCAA 20 hours, when you play golf, it's 4 hours of that is just qualifying a day. And, you got maybe a couple hours in the gym every week. And it's just not enough if you want to be the best just on your team, but in the country too. And with a lot of that, I mean, there's small things that you can do, but mental game and short game, I think a lot of junior golfers just overlook. And it is being talked about a lot more now. I think stuff like Bob Rotella's books or the audio books are very important. I've listened to all of those, and those have helped me just kind of understand what other guys are doing, understanding what pros are doing, to find the small edges that can make them better and, make them better compared to their peers. I think, you gotta put in the time, and you have to commit to yourself that you want to put in that work. And if you do, then you're going to succeed for sure.
So for me, the transition from junior golf to college golf was pretty eye-opening pretty quickly. I had a relatively successful junior golf career, and to be honest, inside 150 yards, I was a below-average golfer in high school. I took advantage of the fact that junior golf courses were not as long, they were not as difficult, so it was a lot of just sort of the bomb and gouge, overpowering golf courses. Really, it took less skill to be good in junior golf, in my opinion, than it did once you got to college. It was quickly shown to me when I was a freshman at Auburn that it didn't matter how far I hit it. I was getting beat all the time by guys. Specifically, I look back at one of my teammates, Jacob Solomon, who's Korn Ferry Tour player now, I was out driving Jacob by 40 yards, and Jacob was beating me every time we played. And it was a clear indication that he was better at everything outside of just hitting the ball far. And in junior golf, you can win a lot of golf tournaments just hitting it far because you hit it up there and you got 110 yards. You don't even have to be that good from 110 yards just to hit it on the green. And, you give yourself enough opportunities, eventually you will make some birdies and you can win tournaments that way. But in college golf, you're not always just going to be able to rip driver and have 100, 110 yards in. You got to be able to position the ball in the fairway in the right spot, and then you have to be able to hit a shot from anywhere from 100 to 170 yards that gives you a good opportunity for birdie. So after my freshman year, when I transferred to Virginia Tech, a huge emphasis was like I knew when I was at Auburn I had to learn how to be a better wedge player, and I had to learn how to hit my scoring clubs much better than I was before. And over the years while I was in school, I transitioned from being primarily dependent on just hitting the ball far to score well to short game really excelling and being the best part of my golf game, and my wedge game really becoming the best part of my golf game. And that allowed me to have more success and have a better college career, just being able to use those scoring clubs and take advantage when I had them. You're not going to have that 100-yard shot that often, but when you have it, you got to take advantage of it. So becoming really good and consistent with those clubs to me is like as valuable as anything in college golf. And, it's not junior golf. For the most part, you're playing summertime tournaments, conditions are good, weather's good. College golf, I remember a couple semesters at Tech, I think it rained like every single tournament we played. Dormant fairways, greens aren't always that great. You hit it. When we played Furman every year, everybody, the joke on the team was like, you're guaranteed to flub at least one chip because it's so muddy, dormant, grainy Bermuda. You're not going to hit those shots solid. But understanding that, short game and scoring clubs are so valuable once you get to college, you can go and miss 7, 8 greens around and still put up a good score if you're playing well with those clubs and you're scoring, your scoring yardage of 150 and in is dialed in, and that's where you really need to excel at the college level and even the professional level. That to me is like the most valuable thing I learned while I was in college.
Yeah, that's great. I think last question here, and then I know you guys are playing here in a little bit. Let everybody go. I think about this a lot, whether it's myself selfishly, whether it's juniors, you guys. Look, you guys are going to go play at 12 today. Do you guys do anything special when you're playing just to try to make it as competitive as possible, to get the absolute most out of every practice round? You guys play a ton of golf. Look, it can get, I'm going to say old at times, but it can certainly get monotonous and repetitive. Selfishly for me, like I don't get to play a ton of golf, but I go play amateur tournaments as the worst guy out there basically, and I want to get more competitive. So it's like, hey, if I'm going to go play with 4 of my buddies that maybe don't, or 3 that don't care as much, how can I structure this round where I get the most out of it? Whether it's throwing some money on the table, whether it's just not focusing on a score that day and focus on something technical. Like I think about this a lot with our juniors that I think frankly go out and just play too much casual golf without anything at stake, and they don't oftentimes verbalize that they have a specific goal. They're just out there playing, hoping that they're going to get better. And especially for you guys playing at the highest level, like you go tee off today at 12, are you guys going to do anything special to put something on the line? How do you approach just playing every single day to get the most out of that session, whatever avenue that is?
For me personally, we generally have some sort of a money match. We don't do anything crazy, just some sort of like $5-10 Nassau with birdies involved. Certain practice rounds, like for me personally, I like when we're doing Mondays, we're playing a practice round, I like to have birdie matches where we do like $5 birdies. Because, when you're at a Monday qualifier, if you're not, Ryan loves to say like, you need to go step on the first tee with a mindset of shooting 10. And I think that's perfect. And if you can go out there in the practice round and prove to yourself you can make a ton of birdies on the golf course, it makes that Monday feel a lot easier, just knowing that I'm more than capable of doing this. But when we're playing casual rounds around here, I don't know how the other guys feel, but me personally, I love these guys. They're my best friends, but I want to dominate every single time I play. I want to beat every one of them every time we play. It doesn't really matter if it's for fun, what we're doing. I want to win. I have a desire to win in everything I'm doing. And that's sort of my drive, is just every time I tee it up, it doesn't really matter who I'm playing, what the match is. I want to win, and I hate losing. So I'm giving it my all to win in that moment and that day, and I'm going to try to get better every day, even when I'm having bad days, finding a different way to win. Maybe if I'm driving the ball poorly, just scrambling around, short game really takes over, and I can try to win that way. Or if I'm driving it really well, not making any putts, just keep firing at flags, try to hit it as close as I can. Just understanding that it's not all going to be perfect every day, but finding ways to win is sort of my way of trying to continue to make myself get better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that, we have just such a good group of guys here in Richmond. It's nice when we're all back home from traveling, throughout the year. But yeah, I mean, we play a lot of money games, and even if we didn't have money on the line, I think, like Mark said, we're all still trying to beat the crap out of each other, and that competition is deep in all of us. So I think just doing this every day and trying to beat each other, even if it's not on the course. With we play 21 on the chipping green, hit balls in the range. We're always trying to get better and compete amongst ourselves, and that's the biggest thing, because competitive golf and tournaments is definitely very different than your average Saturday round. So just to kind of simulate those competitive juices is kind of what we try to do every day.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to play casual rounds for money sometimes with the guys. I mean, most of the time we do, like they just said. But even for juniors and stuff too, you don't necessarily have to do that. And I think it's important to mix it up to where sometimes you are playing for something, and sometimes you are just going out there playing to have fun. But you do need to have a competitive mindset every time you go out, and maybe a goal or two. They don't always have to be the same, because obviously it changes day to day, what you might be working on, what your goal is for the day. But again, for me, I definitely try to go out there with the mindset of winning every time. I think you have to, and I think you're behind if you're not, because, how else are you going to be able to compete with other guys if you go out there and don't really care to an extent what happens? Losing happens 99% of the time in golf, and that's the beauty of the game. As Ryan says, just don't lose. And then you'll win, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that's something for me that I'm trying to get back to, where I can, like Mark said, I can step up on the first tee every time, and I want to kick everybody's tail, because I think that's what guys on the PGA Tour are doing, the guys on the Korn Ferry Tour are doing, guys in college are doing, and I think that's kind of what takes you to the next level, to an extent, regardless of how you feel about your game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark's spot on with this. I mean, I think the best players certainly hate to lose more than anything. I mean, yes, when we're out there today, sure, there'll be some sort of a wager that we'll put down, but it's not really about the money. It's really just a representation of that there's something on the line. And at the end of the day, it's a pride thing. We want to win. We want to go out there, and even in this, a friendly setting, we still want to win. I mean, even though these are our friends, we have no interest in losing. And it is a lot different than tournament golf. There's a big difference to me. It's just a different kind of intensity. I think there's, this is, I don't know. The tournament golf requires maybe a different level of focus for us, but in terms of, either an amateur golfer, junior golfer, or whatever it is, if you don't have as many opportunities to play golf tournaments as we do, I mean, we're doing this weekly, right? We play tournament golf all the time. But if you don't have as much experience doing that, when you're going out with your buddies, or with just guys that you would compete with, but you're playing what would be a casual round, yeah, I mean, I think you should you should probably try to up the intensity a little bit, because I think in order to simulate what it's going to be like at the next level, if you're trying to progress, the more competition you can be in, and the more you can get into that mode, I think is really important. And you can prepare yourself, and you can draw on those experiences, right? You go out there and, you have a tough putt, you got a 6-footer that, to win the match, right? And you make that putt, you internalize that and you remember that for a long time, and I think it's important to do that. And you get to draw on those experiences when you're in the moment in the future. And that's invaluable, really, because you have that confidence because of what you have done in the past. And you can do that at your home golf course, playing with your buddies. You can create those good memories and those good bits of confidence building, experiences. And I think that can really carry you forward and mean a lot.
Cool, good stuff. Appreciate it, boys. I think that's a ton of good stuff that people can use out there at a variety of levels. I know all of our players, golfers, love hearing from you guys and just the details behind the scenes in terms of what your days look like. I know it's an everyday thing for you guys, but everybody at AP loves following along. And appreciate the time. And who wins today?
We're about to find out.
We're about to find out. Stay tuned for the next one. And, we'll see. All right, thanks, guys.